I never expected my life to implode on a random Tuesday afternoon while folding laundry. The doorbell rang just as I was matching my 6-year-old superhero socks, and I almost ignored it. Almost. My name is Riley, and that doorbell changed everything. I opened the door to find a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer blazer. Not a smudge on her makeup. She gave me this quick once-over, taking in my messy bun and old college sweatshirt before asking, "Is Mr. Thompson home?" The way she said it, like I was the housekeeper or something, made my stomach twist. "He's at work," I replied, watching her face carefully. "I'm his wife." Her perfectly manicured hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." He said. She started backing away from the door. "Wait," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "Who are you?" "Claire," she managed, looking like she might be sick. "Claire Jensen. I work with Ethan." "I'm so sorry, I have to go." She practically ran to her car, leaving me standing in the doorway with Oliver's mismatched socks still in my hand. I watched her speed away, my mind racing through every late night at the office, every business trip, every time Ethan's phone buzzed and he turned it face down. The sound of cartoons drifted from the living room where Oliver was watching his after-school shows. My sweet boy who had Ethan's eyes and my stubborn chin. I closed the door quietly, went back to the laundry room, and methodically finished folding every single piece of clothing. With each fold I made mental notes. Check phone records, credit card statements, email accounts. Ethan always said I had an overactive imagination from all the stories I wrote. But writers notice details, and now every detail from the past few months was clicking into place like pieces of a horrible puzzle. I heard Oliver laugh at something on TV, and my hand stopped mid-fold. This wasn't just about me and Ethan anymore. Whatever I did next would affect our son too. I needed to be smart, careful, strategic. My phone buzzed with Ethan's daily heading home text. Usually I'd reply with a heart emoji or what I was making for dinner. Instead, I set the phone down and stared at his message, thinking about Claire Jensen's perfectly styled hair and designer clothes, and how she'd looked at me like I was the help. "Mommy," Oliver called from the other room. "Can we have pizza tonight?" "Sure, baby," I answered, my voice surprisingly normal. "Whatever you want." I picked up my phone and finally replied to Ethan. "Can't wait to see you. We need to talk." The pizza sat untouched between us. Oliver had already eaten his share and gone upstairs to play, leaving Ethan and me alone at the kitchen table. I watched him take another bite, acting like this was just another Tuesday night dinner. "So," I said, keeping my voice steady, "Claire Jensen came by today." The pizza slice froze halfway to his mouth. A string of cheese hung suspended, stretching until it finally broke. I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he set the slice down. "She what?" His voice cracked on the second word. Funny thing is, she thought I was the housekeeper. I folded my hands in my lap to keep them from shaking. "Want to tell me why your colleague would show up at our house thinking your wife was the help?" Ethan's face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, calculation, and finally, a practiced look of confusion. "Riley, I don't know what you're talking about. Claire's just someone from work." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't insult me by lying." He pushed his plate away and ran his hands through his hair. The same nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was stressed about work. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you're having an affair with a woman who looks like she belongs on a magazine cover." My voice stayed low, conscious of Oliver upstairs. "I think you've been lying to me for months." "It's complicated." He reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled back. "I've been under so much pressure at work, and things at home have been..." "Have been what, Ethan?" The rage I'd been suppressing all afternoon finally leaked into my words. "Been too boring for you? Too domestic? That's not fair." His face hardened. "You stopped writing, stopped going out. Everything became about Oliver. Don't you dare blame our son for this." I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. "Or me." "Mommy." Oliver's small voice came from the doorway. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" I turned to see him clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur, his eyes wide with worry. Ethan jumped up, all smiles and false cheer. No, buddy, we're just having a grown-up talk. Everything's fine. But Oliver's gaze stayed fixed on me, and I realized he was waiting for my confirmation. My sweet, perceptive boy who could always tell when something was wrong. It's okay, baby, I managed. Why don't you go pick out a bedtime story? I'll be up in a minute. After Oliver disappeared upstairs, I turned back to Ethan. We're not done here. Not by a long shot. Riley, please. I'm putting our son to bed. I cut him off. And then you're going to tell me everything. And I mean everything, Ethan. The look on his face told me there was worse to come. Much worse. After putting Oliver to bed, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Ethan's phone while he was in the shower. The passcode hadn't changed since he'd first shared it with me years ago. Trust, he'd called it then. The irony wasn't lost on me now. What I found made my hands shake. Hundreds of messages between him and Claire, going back months. Pictures. Hotel receipts. But it was the words that gutted me. The intimacy, the shared jokes, the plans they'd made. I deserve this. One of his messages read, after all these years of being the responsible one, don't I deserve to be happy? The shower stopped running. I quickly replaced his phone and grabbed my car keys, leaving a note saying I needed air. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Margaret's kitchen, my mother-in-law's concerned face studying me over a cup of tea. I wondered when you'd show up, she said softly. Ethan called earlier, sounding off. Did he tell you about Claire? The name tasted bitter in my mouth. Margaret's hands tightened around her mug. No, but I've suspected something was wrong for a while. A mother knows. Did you know he's been planning to leave? My voice cracked. There are messages about apartments they've looked at together. He's been moving money into a separate account. Oh, Riley. She reached across the table, but I pulled back. How could I have been so blind? All those late meetings, business trips. I stopped, remembering something. That weekend you watched Oliver, when Ethan said he was at a conference in Chicago. He was with her in New York. I saw the hotel receipts. Margaret's face aged 10 years in 10 seconds. That weekend, he told me. She pressed her lips together, looking torn. What? He said he needed time to think about his future. I thought he meant his career. He's always struggled with feeling good enough, ever since he was little. Harold's expectations. Don't. I stood up abruptly. Don't make excuses for him. He's not a little boy anymore. He's a father who's about to abandon his son. Riley, please sit down. There's something you need to know about Ethan's childhood. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry about today. But Ethan deserves to be happy. We both do. He's going to tell you everything tomorrow. Claire. She had my number. Of course she did. I have to go, I said, already heading for the door. Oliver's alone with him. Riley, wait. But I was already gone, my mind racing ahead to what I'd find at home. Because there was one detail I hadn't told Margaret. In those messages, I'd seen Claire use the word our in a way that changed everything. When should we tell them about our baby? The laptop screen glowed in the dark of my home office, illuminating a series of email exchanges I wish I'd never found. Not just messages between Ethan and Claire, but conversations with realtors, lawyers, financial advisors, all carefully laying the groundwork for his exit strategy. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to reply to his most recent email to their shared lawyer. Instead, I opened a blank document and started typing. For the first time in years, words flowed easily. Not the children's stories I used to write, but something darker, more honest. The house creaked, and I heard Oliver's footsteps in the hallway. Mommy. He appeared in the doorway, clutching his dinosaur. I had a bad dream. I closed the laptop. Come here, baby. He climbed into my lap, and I breathed in his familiar scent, baby shampoo and that indefinable something that was purely Oliver. Daddy didn't say good night, he mumbled into my shoulder. He had to work late. Another lie to add to the growing pile. Ethan hadn't come home at all tonight. His text claiming a last-minute client emergency. Is he going to leave like Tommy's daddy did? My heart stopped. Tommy, Oliver's best friend, whose parents had divorced last year. I'd helped Tommy's mom pack while she cried about her husband's new girlfriend. Why would you think that? Oliver pulled back, his small face serious in the dim light. I heard him talking on the phone about a new house. And you don't smile anymore, Mommy. I wanted to protect him from the truth, but I wouldn't lie. Not about this. Sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to figure out. But no matter what happens with Daddy and me, we both love you more than anything. More than the new baby? The world tilted sideways. What baby? I heard Daddy telling someone on the phone that they needed to wait to tell about the baby. Oliver yawned. Can I sleep with you tonight? I tucked him into my bed, watching him drift off while my mind raced. Claire's pregnancy wasn't just office gossip or a misunderstanding. My own husband had confirmed it. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Harold and I need to talk to you tomorrow. It's important. Another from Ethan. Working late. Don't wait up. And finally, one from an unknown number, Claire again. We need to meet. There's more you should know. I looked at Oliver, peaceful in sleep, unaware that his world was about to shatter. Then I opened my laptop and started writing again. But this time it wasn't just words, it was a plan. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. I sat across from Harold and Margaret at their dining room table, the same place where we'd celebrated countless family dinners. Now it felt like an interrogation room. Before you do anything rash, Harold said, sliding a folder toward me, there's something you need to see. Inside were bank statements, investment reports, and legal documents, all showing how deeply entwined the Thompson family finances were with Ethan's career. My hand started shaking when I saw Oliver's college fund listed among the assets. If this goes public, Margaret said softly, if you pursue legal action, everything could collapse. The firm's reputation. The firm's reputation? I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Your son is having a baby with another woman, and you're worried about the firm? Harold's face hardened. We're worried about Oliver's future. About your future. There are ways to handle this quietly. Like paying her off? I stood up, knocking my chair backward. Is that what this is? A negotiation? Riley, please. Margaret reached for my hand. We love you like a daughter. No. I pulled away. If you loved me like a daughter, you'd be helping me fight this, not trying to protect him. Again. The front door opened and Ethan's voice called out. Mom? Dad? My heart stopped. They'd planned this. In here, son, Harold called. Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking surprised to see me. Riley? What are you? Then he saw the folder on the table and went pale. Tell them, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Tell them about the apartment you've been looking at with Claire. Tell them about the baby. Margaret gasped. Harold's hand tightened on his coffee cup. It's not. Ethan started, then stopped. For once, he seemed at a loss for words. Not what? Not fair to Oliver? Not part of your perfect plan. I grabbed my purse. You know what's not fair? Having your parents ambush me with financial threats while you play victim. Nobody's threatening anyone, Harold interjected. We're trying to protect this family. This isn't family. I cut him off. This is damage control. I headed for the door, but Ethan blocked my path. Riley, wait. I can explain everything. Move. Please just listen. I said move. I shoved past him, my shoulder connecting with his chest. As I reached the door, I turned back to face them all. You want to protect the family name? Fine. But Oliver and I aren't part of your family anymore. We're survivors of it. The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. In my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Claire. I know what they offered you. I can beat it. I started the engine, finally seeing everything clearly. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about resurrection. The coffee shop felt too bright, too normal for what I was about to do. Claire sat across from me, her designer purse placed carefully on the table between us like a barrier. Her pregnancy wasn't showing yet, but she kept resting her hand protectively over her stomach. I have proof, she said, sliding her phone across the table. About the money Ethan's been moving, about Harold's involvement in covering up other incidents. This isn't the first time. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold. Emails, bank transfers, NDAs with other women's names. Years of carefully hidden secrets, all preserved by Claire as her own insurance policy. Why show me this? Because Ethan's planning to paint you as unstable. A struggling writer who gave up her career, became obsessed with conspiracy theories. She leaned forward. They're already laying the groundwork for full custody of Oliver. The room tilted sideways. You're lying. Check your mother-in-law's calls to Dr. Stevens. They've been building a case for months. Dr. Stevens, Oliver's pediatrician. The same doctor who'd recently suggested I seemed overly anxious about Oliver's minor cold. What do you want? A deal. I'll testify about everything. The affairs, the cover-ups, Harold's creative accounting. You get Oliver. Plus a settlement that actually reflects what they can afford. She paused. In exchange, I want immunity from any legal consequences. And my baby deserves their father's name. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Oliver's asking for you. Please come home. We can work this out. Then another from Ethan. Don't do anything stupid. Think about our son. They're scared, Claire said, watching my face. They should be. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my coffee. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow. After that, they'll file their paperwork and everything changes. Outside, the spring air felt thick and heavy. I drove to the park where I used to write, back when my biggest worry was finding the right words for a children's story. Now I was plotting how to destroy the family that had taken me in when I had no one else. My phone rang. Oliver's school. He was in the nurse's office asking for me. But when I arrived, I found Ethan already there, signing him out. Daddy said we're going to Grandma and Grandpa's, Oliver said, confused. Aren't you coming? Ethan's face was a mask of calm determination. We need to talk about what's best for Oliver. All of us as a family. I watched them walk away, my son's small hand in his father's, and realized with crushing clarity that I'd underestimated how far they'd go to maintain control. They hadn't just taken my husband and my in-laws. Now they were taking my child. The revenge I'd been planning suddenly felt hollow compared to the war I'd have to wage just to keep my son. The Thompson family estate looked different in the rain, less imposing, more like what it really was. Just a house full of secrets. I walked up the familiar path. Claire's evidence backed up on 3 different devices, my lawyer on speed dial. Through the window, I could see Oliver playing with his toys in the living room, Margaret hovering nearby. The sight of my son, so casually placed behind enemy lines, made my hands shake as I rang the doorbell. Harold answered. His usual commanding presence somewhat diminished. Riley. We were hoping you'd come. Where's Ethan? In my study. We thought it best if. I pushed past him, following the sound of raised voices. I found Ethan and Claire facing off in Harold's wood-paneled sanctuary, their argument cutting off abruptly when I entered. Riley, Ethan started. This isn't what? Stop talking. I pulled out my phone, forwarding Claire's evidence to Harold's email with one click. Check your inbox, Harold. Every dirty secret, every payoff, every woman before Claire. It's all there. The room went deadly quiet except for the ping of Harold's computer. You can't prove any of this, Ethan said, but his voice wavered. Claire stepped forward. Actually, she can. And so can I. Ethan's face contorted. You said you deleted everything. I lied. Claire's hand rested on her stomach. Just like you lied about leaving your wife. Margaret appeared in the doorway, Oliver's small face peering around her legs. Mommy. Oliver, go back to the living room, Ethan snapped. No. I held out my hand to my son. Come here, baby. We're leaving. Nobody's leaving, Harold said, still staring at his computer screen. We need to discuss this as a family. Family. I laughed. You lost the right to that word when you tried to take my son. We were protecting him. Margaret burst out. From your instability, from the truth. I cut her off. But Oliver deserves better than more Thompson family lies. Ethan moved to block the door. Riley, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything, therapy, whatever you want. It's too late. I pulled Oliver close. I already filed for emergency custody this morning. My lawyer has everything, including proof of your conspiracy to paint me as an unfit mother. If anything happens to me, or if you try to take Oliver again, it all goes public. You destroy this whole family? Harold demanded. Everything we've built? I looked at my son. Then at the people who'd made me choose between truth and belonging. You did that yourselves. I'm just refusing to help you hide it anymore. Claire's quiet voice broke the silence. She's right, Ethan. It's over. As I walked out with Oliver, I heard Harold's heavy sigh, Margaret's muffled sob, and Ethan calling my name one last time. But the sound that mattered most was Oliver's hand slipping into mine, trusting me to lead us both toward something better than revenge, toward freedom. 6 months later, I stood in my parents' old house, now mine again, sorting through boxes I'd avoided for years. Oliver sat cross-legged on the floor, helping me organize old photographs. Who's this? He held up a faded picture of my parents on their wedding day. That's Grandma and Grandpa Thompson before. No, he interrupted. Your other Grandma and Grandpa, the ones who lived here. I sat beside him taking the photo. They would have loved you so much. The doorbell rang and Oliver jumped up. That's Dad. I watched through the window as Ethan greeted our son, looking different somehow, lighter maybe, or just more honest. The custody arrangement was working surprisingly well. Weekly therapy had revealed things about all of us, truths we'd needed to face. I found something, Ethan said when he came in, holding out an envelope. At my parents' house in Dad's study. It's addressed to you. Inside was a letter from Harold, dated just after our confrontation. Riley, you reminded me of someone, your mother. She stood up to me once years ago, when I tried to buy her silence about corporate misconduct she'd discovered. She chose integrity over money just like you. I've carried that shame for years. Perhaps that's why I fought so hard to keep you quiet. I'm sorry. Harold. My hand shook as pieces of my parents' story suddenly clicked into place. Their sudden career changes, the mysterious move, the careful lessons about choosing truth over comfort. Mom. Oliver called from upstairs. Can I show Dad my new story? Go ahead, I called back, still staring at Harold's letter. He's writing now too, Ethan said softly. Like you. I nodded, thinking about the children's book manuscript on my laptop, about a boy finding his way through a forest of family secrets. It runs in the family, I guess. Riley, don't. I folded Harold's letter. We're good where we are. Oliver's happy I'm writing again, and you're. I glanced at his bare ring finger, thinking of Claire and their daughter, born last month. You're where you need to be. He nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be, without them. Later, after Ethan left with Oliver for his weekend visit, I found another photograph. My parents at my college graduation, standing with the Thompsons, all of us smiling, unaware of the complicated web connecting our families. I pinned it to my writing board, next to Oliver's latest story about a brave knight who saved himself. Some tales I was learning don't end with perfect justice or complete revenge. They end with understanding, with freedom, with the courage to write your own next chapter. And that's exactly what I intended to do.